Welcome back. President Trump's sweeping tariffs are facing a landmark test at the Supreme Court, with the Supreme Court expected to rule as soon as this Wednesday. The court weighing whether the White House can use emergency powers under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA. A decision could reshape the president's trade agenda and put hundreds of billions of dollars in tariff revenue at risk. Meanwhile, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says it would be no problem for the U.S. to cover the tariff refunds if the court rules against the administration, noting that Treasury has over $750 billion on hand. A lot to talk about this morning with White House Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing, Peter Navarro. Peter, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here this morning. And I want to begin on this IEPA situation because we think this is going to have a big impact on markets, although I know that the administration is ready for whichever decision comes down. What are your expectations in terms of the alternatives to that emergency tariff revenue? And I believe it's about more than 50% of the overall revenue raised through tariffs, right?
Well, any of the alternatives, Maria, are what we call in economics a second best alternative. Clearly, first principles here. The world cheats us. Because the world cheats us, we've got massive trade deficits, which basically tear down our economy, export our jobs and our factories. And the reciprocal tariffs are the best way to defend ourselves. The legal issues are clear. The Supreme Court clearly can rule on our favor. Tariff's not a tax. A tariff clearly is an import restriction. Those are the two key big issues. So let's see what happens. I'll let the president take the lead on this once the announcement's done. But of course, we have contingencies, but they're second best.
Peter, there's a lot to talk about this morning in terms of the president's policies. He's calling now for a one-year cap on credit card interest rates at 10%. Wall Street is reacting this morning. The bank stocks are down across the board, leading markets lower. And, of course, the credit card companies are coming up with responses saying that these price controls are going to be an affordability killer, and it will hurt the very Americans this proposal seeks to help the most. Here's the president yesterday, over the weekend on this. Watch.
I want a cap on credit card interest rates because, you know, some of them are 28, almost 30%. And that people don't know they're paying 30%. We're putting a one-year cap at 10%, and that's it. They know it. They've really abused the public. The credit card companies have totally abused it. I'm not going to let it happen.
Peter, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York reports that Americans owed a staggering $1.23 trillion in credit card debt in the third quarter of 25. The president also announced a major policy shift aimed at improving housing affordability, taking steps to ban large institutional investors from buying single-family homes as the House passes the Homes Act. And, of course, the big story of the morning is Jay Powell is under investigation. Already you heard from Senator Tom Tillis saying, look, he's going to oppose the confirmation of any nominee at the Fed, including the upcoming Fed chair vacancy, until this legal matter is fully resolved. He seems to believe this is all politics. Your reaction to all of this, Peter?
Well, let's start with the credit card debt. I mean, like the mafia can't charge as much interest rates as these credit card companies do. I mean, let's face it, if their business model is driven by screwing the American people, then that's a business model, a bad business model. They're giving credit cards out to 5-year-olds. It's just, they need to get their house in order, and President Trump's standing up for the American people. With respect to housing, this is such a key issue. Housing is the American dream. The problem with large institutional investors coming in is they crowd legitimate people out of the market. They come in, all cash deals. They don't have to go through anything that Americans do. President says, no mas, no more. We're going to deal with that. And the other part of that issue, Maria, is they come in, they buy the homes, and they rent them out, and you see rents immediately jump. And there's really good data on how large institutional investors are really driving the higher housing costs. So that problem is going to be taken care of. With respect to Chairman Powell, first of all, the Fed is politicized. Chairman Powell is the worst Fed chair since Arthur Burns, and he is the poster child for politicizing the Fed. The only reason why he's still there is because he papered over the fiscal irresponsibility of Joe Biden and got America into an inflation crisis that President Trump is in the process of curing. So spare me on that. But if you actually look at what he's being investigated for, I mean, look, it looks like there's like luxury elevators and dining rooms. He claims that the thing was never renovated before when in fact it was. And it's just, let's see what the investigation says. And the funny part, like, just Powell gets up there and says it's politicized and it's the tariffs that's the problem, why the costs went up. Hey, come on, Jay. Come on, Jay. Just do your job. Since you got there, you made 3 major blunders that have cost this economy $1 trillion easily. So let's see what happens with this investigation. The only question is, Maria, we know he made false statements. The only question is whether he was aware and did it with malice. And think about that. If he was ignorant about it, that tells you how ignorant he is when he runs Fed policy.
So you say we know that he made false statements. What was the false statements? Do you know specifically what the false statements?
Yeah, you can run through the list. First of all, he said that there's never been any major renovation. There has been. He claimed that there's no luxury stuff in there. You got elevators, you got private dining rooms. So there's certainly more than smoke there. There's fire. The question is going to revolve around, Maria, whether he knowingly made false statements. And again, the irony here is like, okay, if he didn't know he was making false statements, it kind of reflects about how much he doesn't know about Fed policy when he goes out and makes his bad decisions. I mean, remember, Maria, he's consistently being on the wrong end. It's too late Powell, too early Powell. It's like his whole tenure has been marked by costing this economy. I mean, in our first term, Maria, I remember when he started raising rates too fast. Later, the Fed itself said that was a stupid thing to do. He was too late when Biden was in, driving up all the inflationary pressures. It was Joe Biden and Jay Powell that let the inflation genie out of the bottle. And so, and spare me this, like, Fed independent stuff and Tom Tillis and all that stuff. Come on. Yeah. That's a politicized body. And he's the worst chairman since Arthur Burns started running the money pump for Richard Nixon for re-election. So let's get to the bottom of this. But there's a lot of good stuff going on with President Trump.
Yes, I know there is. Yeah, I know that there is. But I just want to say this. The Senate Democrats are going to move to stop the president, as they have been doing anyway. But, Elizabeth Warren is out. Tom Tillis is out. They're all talking about, this is abuse. So they're going to start being even more aggressive when it comes to the president's Federal Reserve nominees. You know that. And they're going to move to not confirm anybody. But we're going to be watching that story. I want to get your take on the U.S. is challenging China and its dominance of rare earths. Look, China is a bad actor. We all know that. Secretary Scott Bessent is urging G7 nations and other major economies to move faster, to cut their dependence on China for critical minerals. The push is coming as China is dominating the refining of key materials used in defense, semiconductors, batteries, clean energy. Peter, you know all about this. You studied this for so long. And I know that right now, China is going one step further. They're now having issues with Japan. They don't like some of the things that the new prime minister has said. So what are they going to do? They're going to stop the flow of rare earth minerals to Japan and its military sector, just the way they bullied the United States. What can be done here, Peter?
Look, Maria, here's the most important thing I'm going to tell you. Everything that revolves around critical minerals and rare earths is based on very basic, crude technologies. And I'm seeing, and I'm at the front lines on this, I'm seeing a tremendous amount of innovation in the ability to produce these things. And ultimately, the weaponization of our supply chains by China in the rare earth space, critical minerals, and other things that they're threatening, and things like pharmaceuticals, is going to be a massive misfire and backfire on China because it's unleashing the potential technological innovation in all of these spaces. And we're going to get to a world where we're quickly going to be able to reduce costs so they can't dump and put us out of business.
Well, I like that, and that's the whole point of the president reshoring and getting corporate America to bring their supply chains to America.
Amen.
I just wish corporate America would have gotten the memo sooner, because these are all national security issues, but they're worried about selling to 1.4 billion people. Peter, great to talk with you. Always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Take care, Maria.
Peter Navarro. We'll be right back. Stay with us.